Hi, hello. So I'm going to continue on with our May's Mental Health Awareness Month series, and today I think today my plan is to talk about dissociation and dissociative disorders. Let's start with what is dissociation? Dissociation is a very normal thing. A lot of people do it. Almost everyone does it at a normal level. Um, Blanking out, like spacing out, is a form of dissociation. When a person spaces out while they're driving home from work on their normal commute, and they don't really remember their commute, but like they got in the car, they got home, but they don't really remember the space in between. Um, that's that's dissociation, because it's something that you do all the time. Um, so your brain sort of like has that like I'm not super paying attention right now moment. It's a time when you can feel really disconnected from yourself and the world around you. You might feel detached from your body or feel as though the world around you is unreal. Those are like telltale signs of dissociation. But like normal episodes of dissociation that a lot of people experience are like when you're tired and you're just spacing out and you're just like sitting there and you're like mind is blank and you're not really thinking about anything and you're just like ooh, like TV screen static, I don't know if TVs do that anymore, but when your brain is just blank, that's a form of dissociation. um Other forms of dissociation are like derealization and depersonalization. So if you feel like the world around you is not real, you might feel like the world around you is not real. You see objects sort of changing shape or size or color, and things feel like foggy or lifeless or dreamlike. Or maybe you feel like other people are robots, even though your brain knows logically that they're not. Um, those those experiences would be considered or might be called derealization. If you feel like you are looking at yourself from the outside, like you're having an out of body experience, or you feel like you're watching yourself in a movie, or you feel like you're just observing yourself and observing your emotions, and you don't feel like you're connected to your body or connected to your emotions, or you feel like you're like floating away, and you're not really sure of the boundaries between you and other people and you and the world. Those experiences might be considered or might be called depersonalization. And those are two really common forms of dissociation, is derealization and depersonalization. So what is considered normal and what is considered disordered? So normal dissociation is any dissociation that doesn't interfere with your daily life. Um, if you're experiencing dissociation on the regular, um, and often enough that you are losing massive periods of time, like hours out of your day or days out of your week, that would definitely be considered probably disordered, and you might want to talk to your mental health professional about that. If you don't have a mental health professional and you are dissociating and losing time, you might want to find a mental health professional to talk to about that. If you experience dissociation regularly and it's not something that's super harmless, like when you're driving home from work and you just space out, or you're just spacing out listening to music and you're not, like if your dissociation that you're experiencing on a regular basis is severe enough to affect your everyday life, that is when it would be considered disordered. And that's when you would definitely want to consider seeking help and seeking a professional. So there are different dissociative disorders, and I'm going to talk about 3 of them. There's dissociative identity disorder, there's otherwise specified dissociative disorder 1A, and otherwise specified dissociative disorder 1B. So there's DID and OSDD 1A and OSDD 1B. Those are 3 pretty common, or 3, I won't say common because that's not really the word that I want to use. Those are 3 dissociative disorders that I want to touch on. I'm going to talk about DID first. DID, OSD, and OSDD 1A and 1B they used to be called like multiple personality disorder. That was what they called these dissociative disorders in the past, and that is not a proper term for these disorders. It is not an accurate terminology because, one, these are dissociative disorders. They're not personality disorders. So it has absolutely nothing to do with personalities or like a disorder of a personality. It has everything to do with dissociative states and dissociative identities. DID is dissociative identity disorder, and that's the one that most people think about when they think of multiple personality disorder. Again, that's not the correct term, but that's what a lot of people, what comes to mind when you think of like Split, United States of Terra, what is that? Nurse Ratched. A lot of those like horror films that like to portray mental illness really badly and in a really stigmatizing light. Yeah, those films. There's a few of them that portray DID in a really bad light, but they portray them in it's fine. So dissociative identity disorder and OSDD 1A and 1B are formed in early childhood. And the leading theory is structural dissociation. So basically, the leading theory is that all children and infants start off as a bunch of little ego states. They want food, want care, want toy pleasure, toy pleasure. So they all young children, babies, they start off as a bunch of separate ego states, and as they grow up between the ages of 6 and 9, those ego states fuse and become one singular identity. However, if a child undergoes a lot of trauma, sustained trauma, repetitive trauma, severe trauma, and they have detachment from their primary caregiver, those ego states are going to be unable to form that one cohesive identity state and will instead dissociate from each other and put up amnesic barriers between each other, and those ego states will form their own personalities or own own separate identities with their own personalities within themselves. So yeah, that's how DID and otherwise specified dissociative disorder forms. That is the leading theory, is structural dissociation. The difference between OSDD1A and OSDD1B is the amnesic barriers. And I always get them mixed up, so I'm going to look this up. So OSDD1B does not have amnesia between the separate alters. So all of the alters, or all of the alters, or all of the separate identities will share memories between each other. OSDD1A, however, will have amnesia between the alters, but they will not be as distinct or different from each other. So that's basically like the general differences between DID, OSDD1A, and OSDD1B. DID is all of the alters are very separate identities with their own very separate senses of selves, and between the different alters and between those identity states, there is amnesia between them. So when one alter fronts and another alter fronts, when they switch between them, they'll probably not remember what happened in between each other's fronting. In a system, which is what we call a person who holds multiple identities or a person with DID, that is, a lot of us call ourselves systems. So we are a system of identities. We have multiple alters within ourselves. There is no original alter. There is no original person or original identity that formed first and then they split off from each other. What happened was they were already split up and they never formed together. So there is no original. So maybe one alter fronts more often than the rest of them. That alter is called the host most often. But just because that host is fronting and is in the body more often, controlling, driving the body more often, that does not make them the original or most important alter in the system. So every single identity and every single alter within the system is an alter. There is no original because there was no singular, according to the theory of structural dissociation, there was no singular person to split off from. It was a bunch of pieces that were supposed to form together that never did. So they all just stayed separate. DID, OSDD, this is disordered multiplicity, right? So this is different from other forms of plurality found in different cultures across the world. This is separate from other forms of plurality that you might find in different cultures, because there are cultures that do have multiplicity, where people are systems and have multiple identity states, but they're formed differently than through trauma, or they're formed differently through a spiritual practice. That is separate and completely different from disordered systems and from traumagenic, trauma being trauma and genic being the source of. So DID and OSDD are considered traumagenic forms of multiplicity. There are other forms of multiplicity or plurality around the world and among different cultures, but DID and OSDD are not those things. I just wanted to put that out there. So yes, that is a little bit about dissociation and dissociative disorders. I'm a little bit not in my brain right now. I guess I would be considered a little bit derealized. I am experiencing a little bit of derealization right now. Things feel a little bit dreamlike, not quite real. So I hope that this video made sense. If you have any questions, I am going to make another video on what it's like living with dissociative identity disorder, because that is something that I do live with. I feel like I didn't really explain it super the greatest in this video. I'm going to make a whole different separate video. This, I just wanted to make more a video on dissociation in a more general sense. So I will make another separate, hopefully better video on DID. But yeah, I really appreciate you watching this video. Thank you for joining me, and please take care of yourself. You deserve all the best. Bye.